They were made to be perfect. They were made to be loyal, but the Adeptus Custodes, they are not the Emperor's servants, they are his judges, and if the Imperium ever strays too far, their silence could become the deadliest verdict in history. The Custodes are not space marines. They are something far older, far rarer, and infinitely more dangerous. Each one crafted by the Emperor himself, not in forges, but in gene laboratories where science bent to his will. They are warriors, yes, but also wardens, philosophers, executioners. For 10,000 years they have watched and waited, golden statues that breathe. But here's the truth that makes Terra tremble. Their loyalty is not to the Imperium, not to the High Lords, not even to Guilliman. It is only to him, and him alone. Before the Thunder Warriors, before the legions, there were the 10,000, the Emperor's golden guardians, each one made not as a soldier, but as a work of art. Where a space marine is a blade, a custodian is a master-crafted relic. It took years to create a single one. No mass production, no compromise. The Emperor poured into them secrets of alchemy and genecraft that even the Mechanicum could not replicate. They were not an army. They were an extension of his will, and at their head stood Constantine Valdor, first among equals, Captain General. Valdor was no distant commander. He was the Emperor's right hand, the shadow that followed him into war. During the Great Crusade, the Custodes did not march in legions. They struck like golden thunderbolts, 1,000 against millions, and yet they never broke. Where Thunder Warriors were fire and Astartes were stone, the Custodes were gold, unbending, uncorrupted, shining even when the galaxy fell into darkness. When Horus turned against the Emperor, the Custodes never wavered. They bled for the throne world. They guarded him in the siege of Terra. But their charge was not conquest. It was protection. They fought not for worlds, but for the man who had made them. And when that man was bound to the golden throne, their oath did not end. It calcified. It consumed them. They became the eternal wardens of a dying god. For 10,000 years they have stood, unmoving, unbroken, guarding the throne world. Other chapters fight endless crusades across the stars, but the Custodes fight a different war, one of vigilance, one of judgment. Every corridor of the Imperial Palace is their cathedral, every chamber a battlefield of silence. Imagine walking through halls larger than mountains, miles of marble, gates the size of cities, statues towering so high they vanish in shadow. And then you hear it, the sound of a single step, one custodian in golden armor, watching you with eyes that have judged emperors and kings. This is their war, a war of stillness, a war of waiting. And yet even in stillness they act, they play the blood games, secret trials where custodians attempt to infiltrate the palace to test its defenses. Sometimes they succeed, sometimes they kill, because the price of weakness on Terra is annihilation. Through these games they remind the High Lords their thrones are temporary, their lives fragile. The Custodes endure when all else crumbles, and the weight of that silence is more terrifying than any battle cry. But before we go further, if you're into these deep dives, hit like and subscribe. It tells me to keep digging into the darkest corners of the 41st millennium. But the Custodes are not statues. They think, they argue, they debate. Unlike Astartes, they are not bound by rigid dogma. Each is a philosopher as much as a warrior. Each has walked the labyrinths of the palace, meditated in chambers older than history, and reached conclusions about what loyalty truly means. Around them, mortals live and die in awe. Artisans polish their armor until it gleams like sunlight. Courtiers bow so deeply their foreheads bleed. Children raised within the palace learn never to look a custodian in the eye, because to look upon one is to glimpse something closer to myth than man. And they do not stand alone. Beside them walk the Sisters of Silence, warriors without voice, Psyker's bane, the nulls who unmake witchcraft with their presence, Together they form the Talons of the Emperor, gold and silence, blade and void. A union of opposites, bound by the will of the master they still serve. Where space marines inspire fear, the Custodes inspire awe. Not an army, not even a chapter, but a living symbol. For most Imperials, to glimpse a custodian is the closest they will ever come to seeing the Emperor himself. This is what makes the Custodes different. They do not fight for glory. They do not fight for empire. They fight for him, and him alone. That makes their loyalty pure. But purity is dangerous, because it cannot be bent. It cannot be reasoned with. It cannot be bribed. The High Lords know this, and they sleep uneasily because of it. Because the Custodes are not Terra's guardians. They are the Emperor's. And the Emperor is not the Imperium. If the day comes when the High Lords falter, when their decrees clash with his unspoken will, when Guilliman himself strays too far, the golden statues will rise, the 10,000 will walk, and the walls of Terra will shake. The galaxy may fear the traitor legions. The galaxy may tremble at the great rift. But nothing will be as terrifying as the day the Emperor's own judges decide the Imperium has been found guilty. If you thought the Black Templars were dangerous, wait until you see what happens when the Custodes stop watching and start judging.